Fort Boonesborough in Kentucky. It was the first chartered city by the Virginia Assembly in Kentucky, and it was in direct violation of the British Crown. It has a storied history, and we'll talk about it today. Having had the recent opportunity to explore Kentucky, probably for the most I ever have in my adult life, I can attest to its beauty. And Fort Boonesborough and the Fort Boonesborough State Park are no exception. The first chartered city in what would become Kentucky, Fort Boonesborough was a respite for many weary settlers who had made the great trek for a new life. Fort Boonesborough was established by Daniel Boone and his men in 1775 after they crossed the Kentucky River. It was an important fortification during the Revolutionary War and was a fort well into the 19th century before it was abandoned. It was placed on the National Historic Landmark in the 1990s and is a working historical site and brings families from across the United States every year. It also withstood a great siege from American Indians, and that siege is played out every year, as you can imagine, to people's delight. At its height, the fort would consist of 26 log cabins and 4 blockhouses. And it's hard to believe, but it was all the way into the 1980s before major excavations were done here, and a great bit of material was found, including some of the initial depots that were established by Daniel Boone, some remnants of the old tobacco house, and a lot of what you see here has been painstakingly recreated from what we know of the site at the time. Going back into the late 1700s as you do when you visit this fort, it's really a time that we can't fathom. If you needed something, you had to manufacture it. You had to be able to make every single thing that you would need for daily life. So bringing friends and family to this working, living, breathing fort is an amazing experience. You'll meet artisans and craftsmen that will show you the different tools and trades that they used in the late 1700s. One of the most important battles on the Kentucky frontier took place right here at Fort Boonesborough, now known as the Great Siege. The residents were able to hold off a concerted effort by the British-backed Native American tribes at its gates. Local in-house artisans continue to keep history alive for all those that come.
Come in and you start talking to the kids. What are you trying to convey to the children that come in here?
I try to tell the children, especially Central Kentucky children, and I'm talking about the busload and busload and busload of school kids that are here in May especially, and I hope we're going to have a bunch here the Friday before the siege in September. This is their history. You'd be surprised if you would look at your mother and father's name, your mother's maiden name, her mother's maiden name, and her mother's maiden name, how many of you have actually got Kentucky history. And I tell them, and if the dad is standing over there or the mother is standing over there, and she says, well, yeah, we were married or related to Squire Boone's second wife's brother or something, then I say, for God's sakes, write that down. They may not be interested in it as a 4th grader, but they will when they're a senior in college.
Oh yeah. And even if you're really good at it, there's still, it always bends material. The saw doesn't bend material. You don't lose any material when you use the chisel. So when you saw it through something, you know, all it does is it removes the material in between the two sides. Yeah. But when you're chisel cutting, it actually splits the two sides apart, so you end up with curves on the sides. So now you don't have square or rectangular pieces, you have sort of trapezoidal pieces.
Right.
And as we continue to make our way through the rest of the fort, we get to one of the final buildings, one of the most important buildings in today's fort. And of course, that's the gift shop. Yes, the gift shop. Pretty much anything that you could want for friends and family. You can get shirts representing the National Park Service and the fort itself. Ale 8, Kentucky's own wonderful beverage. We've got jewelry. We've got handmade soap. So many things, keychains, you name it, they've got it. So I highly encourage you, come out to Fort Boonesborough in Boonesborough, Kentucky. You will love it. It's a beautiful place, and it's an important part of not only Kentucky history, but of American history. Thank you for watching, everybody.